Hey everybody, I'm Mark Freestead with today's Daily Hope. And yes, we do need your candy donations for Harvest Party upcoming. Today's great verse comes from the book of Luke 22:19. If you were raised in a church with liturgy and celebrated communion often according to the liturgy, these will be familiar words for you. In 22:19 it says, "And he, Jesus, took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.'" Those are the words of the Last Supper. But it wasn't just an ordinary meal, it was Passover. And Passover is a huge part of Jewish national identity, one of the three festivals that God commanded the Jews would observe every year. It's a remembrance of when they were delivered from their Egyptian captors, and the angel of death passed over the homes of the Israelites so that their firstborn would not die, and then the Israelites were allowed to leave the country. Passover shows up throughout the Old Testament. It says that when the people of God crossed over into the Promised Land, before they laid siege to Jericho, they camped on the plains of Gilgal, just to the west of the Jordan River. And while they were there, they celebrated Passover. Now think of that, how important Passover must have been, that they didn't just eat ordinary food, but they took time to have that festival, that celebration as a way of remembering. And in Deuteronomy 16:3, it specifically talks about the purpose. It says, when it comes to the Passover meal, do not eat it with bread made with yeast, but for 7 days eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction, because you left Egypt in haste, so that all the days of your life you may remember, there's the word, remember, the time of your departure from Egypt. So anytime Jews eat the Passover meal, they remember the deliverance from Egypt. But now Jesus is sitting there at the meal with his disciples, which was not just a supper. That makes it sound really ordinary, but it was the Passover meal. And as he passes the bread, which is meant to and has always made them remember the days of the Exodus and fleeing Egypt, now he says, "This is my body given for you. And when you take it going forward, you will do it in remembrance of me." He's injecting new meaning into an old tradition. He's establishing continuity between the old covenant and the new covenant, which is him. The Bible doesn't say if the disciples were confused by this or astonished. They certainly didn't recognize the full meaning and the weight of Jesus' words right then. But this is a radical statement. This is a profound statement that Jesus is making. This is my body, and the next day he'll give it up on the cross. Now, I don't know about your experience with dead bodies. In some areas of the country, it's very cultural to have an open casket at the funeral, and you go and you see the dead body, and there is really a sad finality to that, because the dead body has no power in and of itself. It is very much an indication of the end. So when Jesus is saying he's giving his body, he is saying, I am giving up my very life. I will become nothing just for you. And it calls to mind 1 Corinthians 15, beginning at verse 42. So it says, with the resurrection of the dead, the body that is sown or lives in the earth is perishable. It can wear out, but it is raised imperishable. That was true of Jesus' body. It can be true of our body too. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. So it's a big deal when Jesus says, "This is my body, which is given for you." And every time we take communion, we remember that it was done on his behalf for us.